In the last episode's story, my focus was in the concept of dead grandparents' spirit still protecting the descendant, and of buying somebody else's dream. But the whole conundrum actually started with a visit to a haunted place. If you missed the last episode, the link's in the corner and in the description below. And that gave me an idea to make a dedicated episode about haunted spots. I think it will become a 3-part series, and for this first episode, I collected stories from unspecified haunted places. Urban exploration is not so big in Korea, but visiting a spooky, abandoned place or graveyard have been rather popular among thrill seekers for a long time. It's often dubbed as a courage test or boldness training, and is familiar for most people already from their childhood as a nighttime program for a group camping or school trips. Such activity is often associated with summertime. Koreans perceive the scary chill could counter the muggy heat of Korean summer. Major horror films would for that reason usually open in summer holiday season. As for those who can't have their kick with mere films, they may take a step to find one in real life. Stories from such exploration usually falls into 2 clearly opposite categories. One is, nothing happened, boring, and the other, it's no joke, don't do it. Of course, it's the latter that interests me. So here are 5 allegedly true accounts from visit to haunted spots, and scary consequences of such adventures. As always, handpicked, translated and narrated by your host, Anthony. About 10 years ago, I used to live in Busan. It was my goal to run my own taekwondo gym in the future. Naturally, I attended taekwondo lessons enthusiastically, and by the time I turned 14, I took the part-time as sort of a junior assistant at my gym. The gym had occasional weekend-long program for 30 to 50 members of intense training and other recreational activities as a team bonding exercise. One of the usual activities we did in summertime was to walk around a local cemetery at night for what we commonly called courage training. Primary school kids would be sent one by one along the route around the cemetery in 5-minute interval. As the assistant, I was positioned at the end of the route, while other older, middle or high school age members were positioned dotted along the way to occasionally spook the kids and to make sure they followed the right way. The route was long and well paved, so we never had any incident and didn't have much concerns. So one such night, I was counting the kids coming in at the end point. Most older kids would usually brag that it was nothing, they were not scared at all. But it was different this night. Quite a few of them seemed really scared. Some ran back with pale face, some babbled unintelligible things, and some burst into sobs uncontrollably. I asked what triggered them so much. Among all the high emotions and sobs, what I gathered was that one of the older members scared them. She was, they explained, fully costumed in black hanbok, the traditional dress, and was crying tragically in front of one of the tombs. And then, upon noticing the kids passing by, she beckoned them. Slowly and slowly. It creeped me out. 1, there was no female member in middle or high school age group. And 2, we never bothered so much as to prepare a costume or makeup for the occasion. And the last strange thing I noticed, all the kids who claimed to have seen the mystery woman were all 11-year-olds. I tried to calm them down and keep things under control, but it wasn't easy when I myself was shaken by the account. When our master came to the end point with the last group of kids, I discreetly told him what some kids witnessed, and the master quickly whipped up a white lie to calm the situation down that an older female member indeed pulled out the performance as a special treat. When everything wrapped up, I lagged behind to check on the spot where the woman was said to have been, but I could not find nothing unusual. She could very well have been a real mourner, but if she wasn't, and if one of the kids actually approached her, I don't want to imagine what could have happened. The rumor circulated that kids saw a ghost in the cemetery, and the night program there was subsequently cancelled for the future. I would never find out the truth of the night, but I'm happy enough nothing worse happened then. In the last year of high school, I gathered up with a few friends the day after the SAT. Into the late night, one of them talked about a haunted house near his home. I myself did have a glimpse of the house as I passed by, but didn't know about its reputation. The friend, Chinchul, explained that it used to be occupied by a family of 3. One day, the dad, a truck driver, was killed by a car accident. The mother tried for a while to make ends meet working at a restaurant, but eventually she killed her 7-year-old son and herself. Chinchul then suggested that we should explore the house. I objected and said we should just finish our drinks and play a game or something. But teenage boys tipsy on alcohol had no fears. Chinchul soon fished out 2 pocket lamps, and off we went to the supposed haunted house. Well, there wasn't anything much there really. Old wallpapers, cobwebs here and there. I felt a bit uneasy, so I excused myself out early, stating that I needed to pee. Soon others too came out, teasing each other. "You were frightened, weren't you?"
"Shut up, chicken. I saw you peeing your pants,"
etc. We all just went back to Chinchul's, ate some instant noodle, and went to bed. 2 days later, the news arrived that Minuk, one of the gang, was hospitalized. Not that he was diagnosed with anything particular, but he nevertheless suffered the chills, fever, weakness, and restless nights. After taking cold medicine for a couple of days to no avail, Minuk's worried parents brought him to the hospital. I joined the gang to visit him. He apparently could not eat much either because he'd throw up whatever he ate, and he looked older in the span of those 2 days. Minuk started to explain what happened to him. He had a dream where he saw walking along the road and saw a woman sitting on the roof of the house on the roadside. He felt creeps at her intense gaze at him, and he ran away along the road. He turned back after some time only to find both the house and the woman disappeared. Problem was, ever since the nightmare, he started to see the woman in real life. She would be sitting next to him or even follow into toilet. We went a bit pale to hear his story and started to wonder if it had something to do with a haunted house. Minuk's parents were devout Christians and were usually hostile to the idea of shamanism. But when one of the gang from a Buddhist household offered him the beads, Buddhistic equivalent to that of Catholic rosary, that he was wearing, Minuk graciously accepted. No religious barrier among the gang after all. On the beads were carved a phrase from the Heart Sutra. Next day, Chinchul told me that Minuk had asked him to come by himself. We didn't give too much thought about it. A day later, we heard Minuk was back home. We were relieved to think it might not have been anything serious after all. But then we heard Jinchul fell ill. We were worried if we weren't doomed to fall ill one by one. When we visited Jinchul, he wasn't himself. He didn't even say hello or turn to look at us. Then suddenly, he looked at us and spoke in feminine voice. "Don't you visit him again. He's mine now." We freaked out and more or less ran out of his room. Now it was clear he was possessed. First Minuk and now Jinchul. But how curious Minuk was better now and back home. The gang agreed that it didn't quite add up, and we decided to visit Minuk. Minuk didn't say anything other than he had no idea at all too. But why did he want to see Jinchul alone? Minuk said that he just wanted to see him. Then the Buddhist friend noticed Minuk wasn't wearing the beads anymore. "Where's the beads I gave you?" Silence. "Where is it, I asked you?"
I threw it away. You know my family's Christian.
BS. Since when did we care about religion among friends?
I'm sorry.
I felt something was amiss and tried to coax him that he could be honest with us. Was he not going to see us again? Minuk hung his head and finally opened up. The woman appeared in his dream and promised he'd set him free if he'd call one of the friends in and give the beads to him to burn it off. Jinchul was the toughest among the gang, so Minuk called him in. So Jinchul was totally taken over by the ghost. We told Jinchul's parents the whole story. His family tried various things to shake Jinchul up, but the only result they got was Jinchul occasionally murmuring, "The beads, the beads." In the end, a professional shaman was summoned to perform a ritual. We too were present on the occasion. Scary, but it wasn't that we got to see such a ritual every day after all. In the middle of the ritual, the shaman suddenly bolted out of the house and ran into the farming field, where she found the beads. She brought it back and tried to put it on Jinchul. Jinchul fought back ferociously. In the end, his dad had to pin him down on the floor. As the ritual resumed, Jinchul screamed in a female voice, "No, I'm not living! It's mine!" The shaman whipped him with a ritualistic flag, and Jinchul screamed. It was all too much, and the gang, myself included, left the scene. About a month later, Jinchul was back, even though he still looked a skeleton. He said he had almost died and could not deny the existence of supernatural anymore. Then he punched across Minuk's face and declared that he was no friend to him anymore. The gang would still gather up occasionally, but Jinchul and Minuk would never be in the same place to this day. In the last summer vacation of my high school, I was exhausted both with working towards the upcoming SAT and the sticky summer heat. A real holiday was an impossible dream, but I was determined to take at least one getaway somewhere. Pressed with the time and short of money, I and two friends decided to spend the night at an abandoned house in the town. It was a notorious place for the creepy vibe among locals, and even adults would just hush-hush about whatever happened there and why it was left to rot. We were all excited to spend the night there, and fully prepared with rice, ramen, a portable stove, and a camera, etc. The house was indeed very spooky, but our venture around the place didn't come up with anything unusual. We soon relaxed in and enjoyed ourselves, sharing a can of beer we sneaked out with us. I think I then dozed off a while. I was woken up by some bustling noise. It was coming from the kitchen on the other side of the house. I was alarmed that we might not be alone in the place and woke up my friends. They were alarmed too, but at least we were 3 guys, so gathered enough courage to find out what was making the noise. I carefully cracked open the door to the kitchen. Nothing. Flashed the light around. We still didn't see anything. But before we turned around to check other parts of the house, in the flashlight, I caught something. What looked like the train of a skirt. I slowly followed the train with a flashlight, and what revealed was a woman in a tattered morning dress. Her long grey hair was all over the place as she devoured the rice we brought with. She turned her head to our scream. Her mouth was torn side to side, her rotten nose was collapsed, and eyes were all white. We dropped everything and got out of there for our dear life. A few days passed, and I was back to my normal routine, basically studying day and night, stuck in front of my desk. Then, Mom came to my room and asked, "Do you have the radio on?" "No, I was just studying." She looked confused, but didn't say anything more. But not long after she came back. "You are listening to the radio, aren't you?" "No, I wasn't." I showed her the radio was not even plugged in. Mom said, "How odd. Then what is that laughter I keep hearing from your room? A woman's laughter." Next day evening, I was again just doing my things on the desk, and Mom, coming back from her work, bursted into my room. "What are you doing in my son's room?" she shouted. I was confused just as much as Mom's expression, finding me alone in the room. She explained as she came back home she saw a woman standing behind me. It triggered my memory about the ghost I saw in the abandoned house and told her about that. Mom added she'd been recently noticing our pet dog, Chorong, growling at me. She insisted that we should visit a Buddhist temple right next day. The abbot of the temple gave us some talismans. When we came back home, we noticed it was unusually quiet. Normally our dog Chorong would have welcomed us from the door. It didn't take long to find her, dead in my room. Her cold body was wrapped around with my t-shirt, the one I wore the night I visited the abandoned house. The shirt was kept in my wardrobe and I could not explain why it was out now. Come to think of it, hadn't Chorong been barking towards my wardrobe for the past few days? In a shock and fright, I quickly put the talismans around the room and took the shirt out to burn. Fortunately, no more strange things occurred around me. It goes without saying I stopped venturing around spooky places, not even for fun. The misadventure costed the life of my pet dog after all. I spent my childhood in a tiny little countryside village. There were only 6 students in the entire local primary school. Rigid timetables and disciplines of other bigger schools didn't really apply to us. In such liberal and casual environment, kids of course didn't bother too much about study and spent most of days playing around on the playground and the surrounding field. One day in my 5th grade, we ran out of things to do on the school playground and managed to get the permission to go outside under the pretext of collecting insect samples. Yeah, right. At the backside of the village were 2 shrines. With all the colorful ribbons hanging down from the trees nearby, it already was pretty spooky atmosphere there, and adults always told kids not to get near the shrines. But between the 2 shrines was a small stream, particularly clear and cool, and full of sweetwater crawfish and salamanders. And it naturally attracted kids like a magnet. By 10 o'clock in the morning, the entire school kids, 6 of us, were already in the stream, catching crawfish and splashing water. That part of the stream kept cool and shady even on a muggy summer day, but adults in the village seldom passed near. Then one of the gang suggested that we should venture upstream. Always hungry of a new adventure, we all agreed and walked upstream for good 40 minutes. It was already summer, but the water got almost cold, and trees around got even denser, and so did the shadow they made. 2 younger kids started complaining they were scared, and that they wanted to go back. But the 6th grader and I feigned grown-up bravery and ensured them there was nothing to worry about. We walked further upstream about 20 minutes and saw a small house on the bank. It was a very old wooden house, but the paper door and windows were clean and almost new without a single hole. We had to explore the place, of course. The 6th grader and I led the gang. I still can't forget the sense of chill when I grabbed the door handle to open, and I still get goosebumps when I think of that feeling. The handle was tied with yellow, red, and blue ribbons. My instinct was telling me not to open it, but the 6th grader stepped in and broke the ribbons and opened up the door. Cold air flew out from the room. Inside, walls were covered with newspapers and talismans, and dusts covered the surfaces of the chest, table, and duvet. 6th grader and I stepped in and looked around to see if there was anything interesting. Then suddenly the door closed with a bang, as if somebody had slammed it shut. 4 kids left outside screamed and ran away. We 2 inside were surprised too, but feigned a brave face and tried to open the door. But it didn't open. We started pushing it with our body, but it only rattled and didn't budge at all. We panicked and started crying, and then the papers on the door and windows started to vibrate as if by winds. Their fluttering noise filled up the room, and on top of it, somebody started scratching on the door with nails. We were out of our mind at that point. Out of desperation, the 6th grader kicked the door broken, and we could finally escape. We just ran downstream. It must have been just over 1 p.m., but it was so dark that it felt like late evening. The other kids were waiting near the village. Shaking and crying, we all floated out with what was going on, what had just happened. Then a younger boy insisted that he did see something. As they ran away, he looked back at the house, and a woman with a long white hair and in black dress were giggling and keeping the door shut. We were terrified. But we were also terrified how we would be reprimanded had adults learned what we had done, so we vowed to keep silent. So we went back to school to finish the day and came back home. In the evening, I got chills and shivers, so I went to bed right after dinner. In the middle of the night, I woke up with a strange sense of being watched. I could sense a presence in the room. I opened my eyes slowly and saw a dark figure standing at my feet, looking down on me. It swayed side to side, then abruptly started jumping up and down, giggling with a shrill voice. I almost fainted with panic, but managed to scream. My parents and Grandma all barged in and turned on the light, and the figure was gone. I was so terrified that the figure I saw matching what the younger boy said he had seen in front of the strange house. In the end, I came out with what we had done earlier in the day. Grandma's face changed color and asked if we had left the door of the house opened, which we did. Grandma instructed Dad to inform the villagers about it, and they should check on the house in the morning, possibly call in a shaman too. For the rest of the night, I suffered a very high fever. In such a small village at the time, there was no means to go out to the nearest bigger town with a hospital, and my mom could just keep my side with wet towels and aspirin. As soon as the dawn broke, Grandma went to seek the shaman and summoned all 6 kids who went to the strange house. The shaman came, but as soon as she walked in, she claimed it was so cold here and could not possibly deal with it by herself. It was yet another hour later when she came back with another shaman. All the while, other kids and I were all shivering and crying with an unfathomable sense of doom. The 2 shamans started the ritual right away. So impromptu was the ritual, there were hardly any elaborate food for offering, which would have been expected in more usual situation. One shaman suddenly stopped her ritual dance and suddenly bursted into shrill laughter as if possessed, then glared death at us kids. She came up to us and shook us about, saying why we broke in her house and we should pay for the broken door. She then let her hair down messy and giggled. We were all terrified and begged for her forgiveness. Suddenly, the possessed shaman jumped in my room and rummaged through the things. When she came out, in her hands was a piece of window paper. It was clean and neatly folded. She declared that she was going home and went out. The other shaman and villagers followed her. The possessed shaman wasn't from my village and could not have known the way up to the house through the 2 shrines, but she didn't hesitate a second on the way. When she got to the house, we saw one window was strangely missing the paper clean. The shaman took out the window paper she'd been carrying in her bosom and papered the window. She then shouted to the villagers, should any of them trespass her house again, she would kill them all. The passage up to the house was promptly blocked. An annual ritual was organized at the shrines. Not to mention all 6 kids were punished, curfews and whatnot. We didn't dare to discuss about the incident for a long time, and the mystery about the window paper from my room remained unsolved. Only later, when we all became adults, the 6th grader boy at the time of the incident finally confessed to me over a drink. As he ran out of the house, he sensed something catching up his wrist. When he looked, On his wrist was a piece of window paper wrapped around it. Terrified, he ripped it off and sneaked it in my pocket. And so the ghost chose to appear to me. But by guns, I don't hold any grudge on him. Of course, it goes out without saying that I never attempted to explore unknown haunted places even for fun. It's nothing to be taken lightly, I can tell from my own experience. An acquaintance told me the story. A week before his military service, he got together with 3 friends and went to one of their grandmothers in a countryside village. The weather was not on their side, and they were stuck inside all day long because of a heavy rainfall. By the evening, they were all bored to death, and one of them suggested to explore an abandoned house in the mountain nearby. My friend was reluctant. He gets scared easily, but he didn't want to be called a chicken and joined the adventure. Time was passing 1 in the morning. Walking along the muddy pit and feeling somewhat apprehensive about the whole military thing, he lagged behind his buddies, deep in his own thoughts. Suddenly he saw friends running away, leaving him behind. He knew they were pranking him, but he soon had to run after them himself when they ran out of his sight. They had all the lights, and left behind in the moonless night was too scary for him. Soon he was facing an old traditional house. Faint light was seen from inside, must have been from his friends' flashlights. To pay their prank back, my friend sneaked in and burst open the door, shouting, "Boo!" But there was nobody, except for the flashlight left dropped on the floor. Ah, they are playing hard, huh? My friend thought. "Come out, you bastards! Otherwise I'm just going back!" he shouted. But what answered him was a faint voice of a woman. "Help me!" He was all goosebumps. Was this real? "Please, help me!" It seriously sounded like from somebody breathing her last breath. "Who is this? Where are you?" "Over here. Please." He followed the voice and found a young woman, probably in her 20s, in a room. She was stabbed in her belly and seemed to have bled dangerously much already. My friend jumped in and shook the woman, barely alive. He took out his phone to ring the emergency, but it went off as if run out of juice. Having no options, he held her up and started running down the mountain. The muddy trail was slippery, and he wasn't even sure if he was going to the right direction. He slipped hard and fell into a pit. He must have passed out a while, but woke up from raindrops falling on his face. His body was achy all over, but soon jumped up, remembering the dying woman. He desperately looked round and found somebody lying around. But it wasn't a woman, but one of his friends with the cuts and bruises on his face. "Wake up, buddy! Wake up!"
Why are you here? What about the woman? Where is she?"
the friend said. "What? Do you mean the young woman with a bloody stab wound in her belly?"
"Yeah. Did the other guys take her to the hospital?"
"But I was taking her down and fell into this pit." They searched around to find the lost woman, until they heard the voice of other friends approaching. They seem to have brought some other villagers too. My friend rushed to them and said they should find this dying woman. An old villager sighed deep and said,
"So it was her again."
He then told them what had happened.
20 or so years ago, a young woman from Seoul rented a house up there and lived alone. One rainy night, a robber broke in. Finding the woman living there alone, the bastard raped her and stabbed her, and she was left there bled to death. Since then, people say they see her on a rainy night, like today.
His friends later explained too. They were indeed pranking by leaving him alone in the dark. When they reached the house, they found the woman there. All their phones malfunctioned, so two of them ran down to the village to call for help, while the third one stayed behind with the woman. But the woman seemed flickering out any minute. He in the end picked her up and followed the others to the village. It is all mystery and spooky as it is already, but what my friend finds most baffling is how he didn't run into his friends all the while, even though he was lagging behind them by mere a few minutes. As if they lived through the same ordeal, but in a different dimension from each other's. Hi, it's Anthony here, and thank you very much for your listening. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. Are any of you too into urban exploration or visiting known haunted places? I do like old buildings and occasionally watch urban explore videos on YouTube, but a bit too lazy to actually try it out in real life, which might be just as well if today's stories be true. This first episode was a general introduction of a sort to the theme, but the next 2 episodes would deal with known or even infamous haunted places in Korea, their history and accounts from those who visited there. So stay tuned. If you enjoyed my work, please give me a boost with your like and comments, and also consider subscribing to my channel and activating the notification bell to get updated with my weekly videos. Thank you. I'll come back with more haunted places next week. Until then, stay safe and take care.